All right, so for this week, what we're going to do is sort of change up how we're going to do the lecture. So for tonight, we're going to look at the guided practices, which is 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4. And the reason we're going to do that is these are pretty much hands-on labs that walk you through Microsoft Access. And before we dive into the labs, I'm going to use the labs as a beginning point to talk about Microsoft Access, what it looks like, how you would utilize it, and what the important points of Microsoft Access are. That way, once you get into the performance assessments and the guided practices and everything, you would be able to know exactly what's going on. All right, so before we get started, does anyone have any questions? All right, so let's go ahead and you can, if you choose, log into vCastle. I'm not going to be using vCastle for this particular set of assignments. I'm going to be using my own version of Microsoft Access, just so, and it may look a little different than what you would see in vCastle or one that you may have downloaded directly. Just wanted to let everyone know that just in case it looked different. And I will call out some of the differences or the key differences as we start going through Microsoft Access. One thing I want to mention or talk through before we dive in and open Access is I want to read parts of the intro or read the intro and talk about it before we dive in. In Microsoft Access, so far we have discussed the steps that we need to complete in the database design process prior to developing a database structure. So in this week, we'll learn or we'll walk through how to create that relational database, and we're going to utilize Microsoft Access. Now, if you remember back in week 1 and in week 2, we talked about the logical design structure, the design, and we kind of blended all of that into normalization. And now we're going to go deeper and start talking about that physical design. We're going to take everything we put on paper and we're now going to transfer it into an actual database structure. And so a database management system, or DBMS, is system software for creating and managing databases. And so the database or the DBMS provides users and programmers with a systematic way to create, retrieve, update, and manage data. And if you remember back in week 1 and 2, we talked about the different languages or different types of language structures that you could use for SQL or structured query language that create, retrieve, update, and manage. Those are DDL or data definition language and DML, which is data manipulation language. And so a database makes it possible for end users to create and read, update, and delete data in a database. Whenever you're doing that insert, update, delete, or read, you're doing a DML action. Whenever you're creating the database objects, you're doing a DDL action. You're actually creating that object. And so the DBMS essentially serves as that interface between the database and the end users or the application itself. And Microsoft Access is a DBMS. It is produced as a desktop application by Microsoft, and it's one of the more popular database tools for desktop use. If you would like to go through, there is some readings and a video on Microsoft Access. We're going to go through quite a bit of this internally. But if you would like to, you can go back and watch this video and look at these links as well. We're going to touch each piece of this, so I'm not going to go through this particular web page in detail. I am going to save this and go into it in just a little bit. So, like I said, today we're going to go through week 3, which is Microsoft Access. And in the next 2 weeks, so this week, the following week, and then in week 5, we're going to be in Microsoft Access. Today, we're going to be looking at creating tables, creating those relationships between the tables, and then adding, updating, and removing data from a table. In weeks 4 and 5, we'll be looking at creating reports and creating forms and queries and adding security to all of those. So we've left the logical process, the logical understanding and design process behind, and now we're in the physical aspects. We're actually touching the database itself. All right, so before we dive in, I do want to open up Microsoft Access. And like I said, for me, it's going to look a little different than it would, let's say, for you all. One of the reasons is I have this in dark mode instead of light mode or default mode. If it's in default, you'll see a gray background as opposed to a black background. For me, since I work in a database structure all day, every day, and I'm constantly looking at my computer screen, a black background is a little bit easier on the eyes over a period of time. So I've changed my background color. When you first open up Microsoft Access, if you've never opened it before, especially if it is Access 365, which is the newer version of Microsoft applications, what you'll notice at the very top, you'll have these new database templates that you can choose from. Now, there's more that we can select if we chose more templates, but the one thing you probably won't have is this box at the bottom here that has a series of databases that have already been opened, created, or utilized. I can even pin some of them and use them later on if needed. But the more you use, the more you will see. And so after today, you're probably going to see a lot more of these in your list. So let's start off on the left-hand side. You'll see Home, New, and Open. Home is this particular screen that you see. We call this the welcome screen. If you click on the New button, the New button will send you into the same look that you had in the home screen at the very top. The difference is it's a little bit more broken out and a little more pronounced, so you can see more. We can also look at more templates that are available. And we will not be working with a lot of these. Actually, we won't work with any of these currently. But if you want to go in and look at any of them, you're more than welcome to open them. If you read anything in regards to Microsoft Access, the very first thing that they're going to reference is either going to be this Northwind Traders Start Edition, Development Edition, or the Legacy version down here. That's because it is the sample database that Microsoft puts together to show you how everything looks, how it works, how it's intermingled, and how it's connected. It's just a quick 1, 2, 3, or 4 record table or multiple sets of tables that are put together. And we'll go through all those as well. We can also open a new or open a database that we've already saved if we have any. And you'll see I've taught this class a couple of times, so I do have quite a few available. You can even save them or open them from OneDrive as well. We're going to go back to New, and I'm going to choose Blank Database. Now, I'm not going to tell it to go to the standard My Documents directory. I want it to go somewhere that I can keep it. So I'm going to hit this little folder icon. I'm going to choose Downloads for now. I'm going to call this one Week 3 CIS. I'm sorry. CIS223. CIS 223 example. One thing I do want to draw your attention to is this save as type. Microsoft has been around for quite a while, and prior to Windows or Microsoft Access 2000 or Microsoft Applications 2000, you could use a format called .mdb, which is Microsoft Database, is the file extension. That particular database section or style had its own structure, its own way of putting things together. In 2002 to 2003, which is when Microsoft Office 2003 came out, they introduced a new format, which was just another addition to Microsoft Database. Even though they produced a new format, they did not do away with the previous. And as you can see from 07 forward, they still haven't gotten rid of the older versions. They just allow you to use them if needed. They do prefer that you use the latest version, which is 2007 to 2016. Now, you're probably thinking that's a little old as well. It is, but that was around about the time they started using Microsoft Office 365, which provides you with updates and changes as needed. It's no longer the bundle executable that you'd have to install all of your applications from. You just get them when needed as updates. But that is when they introduced the ACCDB or Access Database extension. So we're going to leave it as the Access Database extension. I'm going to choose OK. Notice it changed my file name and path, and I will go ahead and hit Create. Now, when it creates, by default, it cannot have what they call an empty shell. It cannot have an empty structure. It has to have something there in order to create. So Microsoft or Access populates what they call or consider a dummy table. It means nothing. There's nothing in it. It's just a placeholder for us to put information. Now, I do want to go through each one of these ribbons at the top, and we call these the ribbon bar. In the ribbon bar, we have File, Home, Create, External Data, Database Tools, Help. And then you'll see these two in red here. The reason these are in red is they are only visible when certain fields are selected. That's the only time they're visible. You move away from them, those go away. Now, in the home ribbon, you'll see a series of groups or sections. Under these sections, we have View, Clipboard, Sort and Filter, Records, Find, and then our text formatting. If I were to open Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Excel, you would almost see the exact same look and feel. And Microsoft has spent a lot of time and effort into generating just that, a cohesive look and feel. What they want is for you to be able to be in any one of their applications or Office suite and feel like you have already been there, that you know where you are, and that it's easy to navigate. So you'll see the same ribbon or the same type of ribbon across all of the application set. Now, the one piece that I do want to draw your attention to that we will be working with today, and we worked with it last week, is this Views section. In Views, you'll see we have Data Sheet View and Design View. Now, these two views allow us to operate or do different things in Microsoft Access. What you're viewing currently, which is this Microsoft Excel look and feel, is considered the datasheet view. Datasheet view allows us to add new columns. You'll see at the top there, it says click to add. It allows us to add rows or fields, information in those rows. The one thing you can't do is currently you can't define data types without selecting them. So it's a little different look and feel. If I wanted to make modifications to this table before I inserted any records into it, I would need to go into Design View. Now, the moment I click Design View, you cannot open Design View without having the table already saved. So I'm going to click on Design View, and it's immediately going to ask me for the table name. I'm going to call this Example 1. Actually, now I'm going to call this Person and say OK. You'll notice on the left-hand side in our object window, it changed our table name to Person. And we opened into a field view where we have our field name, our type, and a description. But if you notice at the very bottom here, it opened up a fields panel as well. We can modify the field type, and this is directly related to the data type that has been selected. So let's add a new one. I'll say fname and hit tab. When I hit tab, it immediately defaults to short text. For just about everything we're going to be doing, you're going to use short text, number, date and time, or auto number. We may use currency, but overall, those are the ones we're going to be utilizing. Short text, number, date and time, auto number, and maybe currency.
Professor, what does auto number do?
So auto number is a unique field or a unique data type. What it does is by default, it starts out with a 1 as its number, unless you specify that number.
Okay.
Once you specify it, let's say I don't specify a number, and I go to the datasheet view and I start inserting information or record information in our columns, it will auto increment that field. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment.
Okay.
So let's put a couple more things on here. It's not going to hurt for us to add a couple more things. So let's do L name and phone number. Leave that as short text. Now I'm going to save this before I do anything. And before I move back into datasheet view, I do want to draw your attention. When I click on this ID field, you'll notice that the primary key is activated. You can specify your primary key in Microsoft Access. We can even highlight all of them or any number of them and choose primary key. By doing that, by using multiple columns or fields as our primary key, we've created what we call a composite key. It's a composite or a concatenation of more than one field to make a unique identifier. Now for us, we're just going to use ID. So I'll select off of that and choose ID. When the primary key is selected, one thing you need to understand and remember is that you cannot duplicate that record. The primary key cannot be duplicated. It has to be unique all the time. That's why it's a good idea to have auto number to let it do it for you. So let's go into design or datasheet view. And I want you to notice when I start typing in this first field or second field, I want you to notice what happens in the ID field. I'm going to say John Roberts. And now I'm going to hit tab to be on the second field. And I'm going to say Sally Jones. You notice that that ID number changes each time. And Jenkins. So you'll see it changes each time. Now, as I move down in these rows, you'll see that the little icon here is kind of hard to see. It's a little bitty pencil. That indicates which field you're in and if you are modifying that row.
I
Inside
have
of,
a quick
go
question,
ahead.
sir. As far as with the auto number function, is it always in increments of one that it does it, or can you change those increments to say like
You
10,
can you
15?
can change those. You can modify those. So if I go back into design view, I can say increment or I can do random. And you can give it a format of how you want it to increment. So it is configurable in some ways, but not a lot. So there's not a whole lot of things you can do with it, but it is slightly configurable.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I will say that Microsoft Access is, they call it auto numbering. If you're working with other database types such as Oracle or SQL Server or MySQL, they call them sequences. And a sequence can be auto-generated or can be generated every time you request a number or a key from that sequence. It's not really different than what you see here. The only slight difference is it's stored in the database externally as opposed to auto-generated each time. So if we look under data sheet view, under design view, we have the ability to look at validation rules, which we don't have any currently, property sheet, we can look at indexes, and I'll explain what indexes are in just a few minutes. You can even look at any macros that are created. We're not going to work with macros currently. We can even go into the relationships, so dependency objects and the relationships. We don't have enough tables currently to warrant a relationship, but we could shortly. So let's go ahead and move back into datasheet view. Again, we have our clipboard, so we can still have the same copy commands. We have the same text formatting commands that you would in just about every Office application. We have the find command. Again, same just about every application. The things that are different here is our sort filter and our records. The sorting you may have seen before if you've ever used Microsoft Excel. It's really no different, where you can sort, filter, and add selections to limit the data set that you want to see. For the records, you can add a new record, you can do totals, you can add other data sheets, change the fields, freeze them, unfreeze them, change the width, just like you potentially would in Microsoft Excel. So if you're looking at a data sheet view, think of data sheet as a Microsoft Excel workbook. Only difference is it's in Microsoft Access as opposed to Microsoft Excel. Now, at the top of the ribbon, that was our home. Under our create, we have a series of groups or sections as well. We have tables, queries, forms, reports, and then we have macros and code. The ones we will be working with are going to be tables, queries, and reports. We may work a little bit in forms, but for the most part, we're going to be working in tables, queries, and reports. So we'll touch each section. We'll touch a section a week just about. So we have 3 more weeks left. So we'll be working with tables and I think queries this week, and then reports next week, and then security the following. But under each heading or each section, you can create a table. You can create a table in design view. In queries, you can use the query wizard, and that wizard is a way for you. It's like a step through process where you can go through a workflow and select different things that you need in order to build out your query. Now, a query is nothing more than a question. It's asking the database to get you information from either one table or a series of tables, and to limit that data based on some criteria. A form is a way for you to systematically input or query data as well. It gives you a nice graphical interface into your table itself. And then reports is a way for you to display the information from your tables or your queries to upper level management or others. And you can use report or report design. The difference between table, and I've moved back to table and table design. The difference between the two is if I choose table design, that will open a blank table in design view where I can make modifications to the fields, the data types, and the properties. If I click the table section, that's going to create a blank table, but it's going to open it in datasheet view. So it's just a little different in how you would work with it. We can also look at external data, so we can import and export like we did last week when we imported from Microsoft Excel. For database tools, we're only going to work with this week and next the relationship section and this compact and repair section. And I'll talk more about that later on and why it's important. The relationship portion, I'm going to click on that, brings you into a relationship window. This is where, if you remember looking at ER diagrams or entity relationship diagrams, this is where that looks kind of the same. It looks relatively the same. So I went over here to add tables and I just selected that table. And now you'll see that table is available for me to look at. The more tables I have, the more tables I can see and I can add relationships to. Okay, so let's close this. I'm going to create a new table. So create design view. I'm going to call this order ID. That's going to be an auto number. It's going to be purchase date. That's going to be date time. Sales ID. That's a number. And person ID. And that's a number. I'm going to select order ID and make that the primary key. Then I'll go up here to save, and I'll call this orders. I'm going to create a new table called order items ID, auto number, order ID, and that's a number, name, cancel. So item name, item description, price, quantity, it's a number, and I'll take the order items. I'll just shorten that to items ID, create a primary key, and save that. We'll call this items. And then we will have our one more, and we're going to call this one sales. Auto number. plus F name, L name, start date, department. All right, we'll take that sales ID. I'll make that auto number. And we'll save this as sales. So now we've got 4 tables on this left-hand side. I'm going to close all of these, and that's important to do when you want to look at creating relationships. So we'll go over to our database tools and into relationships. I'm going to select all of them. So I selected the first one, held down Shift, and selected the other 3. And I'm going to say Add Selected Tables. You'll notice that immediately put those in our relationship window. In order to create our entity relationship diagram or our relationship diagram, all you have to do is select the primary key and drag that over to the corresponding foreign key. And that's going to bring up the relationship window where you have your parent on the left-hand side and the child on the right. By default, we want to always enforce referential integrity and have cascading update and delete. Now, what does that mean? Enforce referential integrity means that if I make a change in the parent table that may affect the child table, the orders table, I always want that update to flow to the child or from the child up to the parent. That way, there's no data anomalies or data inconsistencies. And we'll choose Create. And you'll notice we have that nice little bar that comes down, and it looks like a 1 on the left-hand side and a mini or an infinite symbol on the right. What that means is we have one person can have many orders. Well, we also can have one order can have many
Items.
order
Or
items. Correct.
does it always create an infinite?
Yes, unless it is a 1-to-1, and if it is, you can go. What happened? You can go to the join type here,
Mm-hmm.
and you can change it. So you can say include all records from orders, or include all records from items only. So I'll choose these. Say OK. And if it's different, it will show different. You'll notice that the arrow shows.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to select that and change it back. Only records that are joined in both tables is what we want to see. There may be times when you want to see all of the orders regardless of if they have items, or all of the persons regardless of if they have orders. But for the most part, we're not going to have that. And then a salesperson
Can have infinite sales.
can have many sales.
I like this program. It's very neat.
Say again.
I like this program. It's very neat.
It makes it easy to look, to see,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is why I made the comment, I think in week 1 or 2, that I'm not a big fan of Microsoft Visio.
Oh yeah.
So
It's
this
too
is
much
why I can do the exact same thing right here.
in less short time.
Correct. And it's easier to explain too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
now that these are created, right? If I save this, so you go up here to save and close. If I go into my persons table, you may not have seen this before, but there were no little plus signs available. What this has done is created that relationship between the person and the order. So if I click on John and I expand that out, and I say John purchased
Oh, you can get it exactly.
today, and his salesperson was number 1, and I save that. Okay. Well, I can't save that, sorry, because I don't know. I take that back. Before I can do that, I have to go into sales and create the person. So
So we're actually getting into like the data.
we're building the
Buckets.
data now. Yep.
Oh wow. Okay.
I'm going to use someone's name and I'm going to do it at random. And they started August of last year, and they're in the sales department. Granted, this is not normalized. We'd probably have another department table just for that, but for the nature of what we're doing, this is just fine. So we'll go back to person, and now I can choose 1 for the ID and save that. But you notice there's another drop down. Socks.
That goes into the item itself from the order.
Mm-hmm.
Magical socks.
$1,000.
$1,000 for just one sock.
Yep. And they bought 5.
They
And I'll
better be just
save
fine.
that. And I can do another one. So we'll do,
Shirt.
yeah, shirt. That works. Shirt. Um, that's not how you spell that.
Tactical.
Tactile is what I was thinking, but yeah.
Oh, like sheeps. Sheepskin.
So and they're gonna buy 50 of those. No, price is $50, and they're gonna buy 100. Okay, so now we have a person, John, who purchased something today, but he bought 2 items, right? So if I go into the sales now, and I look at Miss Cortez, I can see that she made a sale. I can even go in and see the items that she sold.
Mm,
Or if I go into orders, I can see the orders. And
yeah.
if I drop down, I can see the items in those orders.
Mm,
So up to this point, it probably made 0 sense why we were putting little lines on a page going from one entity to another, and why we were talking about relationships and primary keys and foreign keys and having all these things put together. This is why. So that when you
it's-
get into a database, you know that the primary key in one table directly affects the child or the foreign key in another table and allows you to link those two together.
mhm. It lays it all out.
Yep. And it's all done through that relationship.
Relationship. Very cool. Very cool.
All right. Does anyone have any questions so far? I've been talking for a little bit of time.
Could you show again real quick how to get the relationships tab open that you're in right now?
Yeah. So if doesn't matter where you are in Microsoft Access, if you go to database tools right here, you can choose the relationships window. And if you don't see anything in here, I could remove all of those. I think it'll let me. Yep. So I can remove all those. And if I wanted to add them back, I can go over here and add them one by one. And then I tend to drag them around and make them easier to see. The
And the
relationship.
relationship automatically,
Say again.
and it maintains the relationship
It
automatically.
maintains the relationship. Yep.
Wow.
The only way to remove those relationships
Yeah. How do you do that?
is just by clicking it and deleting. Now, I cannot delete these relationships currently because there's records in each one of these tables. And
Oh,
remember the referential integrity that I created.
so this software is what will database you like companies uses, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yes. I'm going to go with yes. This is what they use. With a caveat that this is considered a desktop style database,
Mm,
meaning it's only available for you personally, or if you share it to other people. You
right.
get into the more enterprise level databases when you start looking at, and I'm just going to pull one up. This is an enterprise level.
SQL.
Yeah, this is the tool that I use to connect in. And what you saw there with the data sheets was
Mhm.
all well and good. It's nice to see, right?
Right.
But when you start working with larger data sets, you don't want to play with you don't want to work with a terabyte worth of data in an Excel spreadsheet. So we
Yeah.
use what we call SQL. SQL stands for structured query language. What you see here, these are
Mhm.
that are highlighted, is structured query language. It is an SQL statement that has a question,
Mhm.
a point or table that you want to ask the question to,
Mhm.
and then a limiting factor or a sorting factor on what you would like to see.
Okay.
It's like asking a question to your child or to a child. You would say something, and I'm trying to think of a good scenario. No, let me back up. It's like let's use a sales associate for a car. You walk into a car dealership, and the first thing you do is you get met with a sales associate, right? They're going to immediately say, "What
What
sort
kind
of
of car you're
vehicle are
looking
you
for?
looking for?" Right.
Yeah.
Well, what color? How
That'll be
many?
the starting factor.
Yep, the sorting factor. Well, what color? How many rows of seating? What engine type? What do you
Mm.
like to do?
Yeah.
Those are the probing questions, and those probing questions are that where clause. It's the limiting factor, starting to section out what you would like to see.
Right.
As an example, I'll do this one here, the first one. Now you'll notice still a grid style, right?
Mhm.
But it's a little bit different look and feel.
I mean, not a little. There's a lot more to it.
Well, there's a lot more table or a lot more fields to this
Yeah.
one.
It was.
Yeah. And these fields actually tie into a whole different process, which we won't go into today. I'm using my hand. You all can't see it to tell myself to move on, because if I don't, I'll go down this rabbit hole, and you don't want me to go down this rabbit hole.
I'm just interested, and now I wanted to know more about that, but we can move on.
Yeah. Well, so I'll give you a high level really fast. This particular table, the
What's it for?
ban jobs table, was designed to capture all of our running processes, and
Okay.
not just a process on the system that this database is on. I have a probing daemon or service, if you're familiar with Windows, a Windows service or a Linux daemon that's constantly running, looking at all of the services that it can monitor and
Mhm.
reports back to this database. And this is the table that captures all that information.
How do you link the two of them together?
It's using TCP, or I'm sorry, not TCP. It's using gRPC to do standard
Okay.
message datagrams.
So the Windows
Basically, it's
server.
sending information as a how do I think? You ever work with a chat bot or a message board
Mm-hmm.
where you type something in and someone else comes in and types something back to you?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same sort of concept. This particular daemon will put a question out to every IP address in that stack and say, hey, what is your status? And every
Gotcha.
daemon on those IP addresses will pick it up and say, my status for this service is this, status for this service is this. It
Mm-hmm.
will take all that information and feed it back into the database.
Someone is asking in the chat that if you made this specifically.
I did.
Wow.
I did.
How long did it take you?
So the beginning parts of it to get it wired took about 6 months.
Oh my goodness.
And then to build it out to what it is today, we have been constantly evolving it over the past 6 or 7 years.
Wow. Okay. This is very cool.
But this is what you can do with databases. And this is a drop in the bucket to what you can do.
Mm.
I could go deeper and show
We're
you
pretty much
more.
pretty much learning like the theory and the practical aspect of doing it, but we're not taking like an advanced class of
Correct.
SQL and stuff like that. Oh, they're asking if you made it with
Yep.
the team.
Yep. So Isaiah, the answer to that particular question is I had one other person who initially started, and he and I worked on it for about 3 to 6 months together. And he left to go to a different company. So past that, it's been mostly me.
Mm. And they pay you for this stuff like real
Mhm.
good, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is considered uh, DevOps or CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development, or
Right.
delivery.
Right.
So,
So they pay you as long as it's still running.
right when it's that one, they pay you more when it stops running because you got to fix it.
Oh wow.
And if you're the one that built it, it's kind of hard for them not to if they don't know
Right, right, right.
how it works.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. To become the engineer of the database for that company.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
This is really cool.
So
I like
let's
this.
pause here. It's 6:36. Let's take a 15-minute break because this was the beginning introduction into what Microsoft Access is and how it works. What I want to do now is take a look at the three guiding practices. So let's take about 15 minutes and get some water, take a break, stretch your legs. When we get back, we'll go through each one of those, and I'll make sure you have just about everything you need for the assessments as well.
Okay. Professor, do you mind calling me privately for a few minutes?
Sure. Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
Yep. Everyone else, go ahead, and I'll see you back in 15 minutes. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, everyone with me so far? All right, awesome. So for tonight, what we're going to start off with is looking at guided practices 3.2. And so I'm going to go into Microsoft Access and I'm going to close this database. Now, before I do that, I want to mention a tool that I talked about earlier that I wanted to talk about before we went into the guided practices. And that was the Compact and Repair Database tool. The Compact and Repair Database tool, what it does is it saves everything that you're working on and compresses it down to a more manageable structure size. It makes sure that everything that you've got in the database is set up properly, or it makes sure that it can successfully exit out of the program without causing any issues. Now that we're able to exit the program, we can go to File and Close. For Guided Practice 3.2, we're going to be looking at creating a new database, creating new tables, and defining some fields. So let's go ahead. I'm going to open the Word document that's attached. All right, so we're going to create a brand new database, and we're going to utilize those same 3 or 4 fields that we've been using over the past several weeks, which is painter, painting, and gallery. So I'm going to drag this over so we can see. All right, and the first thing is we're going to go to File, to New, into Blank Database. I'm going to take this to Downloads, and I'm going to call this one my last name Access GP. GP tables. Now choose OK. And then create. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the first thing it does is creates a blank table. We're going to go into design view. In order to do that, we have to save it. And so we're going to save this as painter.
Professor, we're doing this in vCastle, right?
You can do it in vCastle if you want. If you have Microsoft Access on your machine, your local, you can do it that way.
Does ACPI give us Microsoft Access for free?
They do, but I don't know if you'll have access to it just yet.
Oh,
It's through the MSDNAA site. If it were me, I would go ahead and use vCastle just to begin.
Sorry to interrupt, Professor, but yeah,
No, you're good.
I've been with Fabrizio for a while. We've taken the same classes. I got a copy from it. If you go to the ECPI is under students under free software, and go through that site, you can get a copy of it. You have to sign it. It's the 360 Microsoft 365 version.
Go to ECPI instructor.
Yeah, go to ECPI. You know where.
So
the
for me, it's colude.ecpi.net.
Yeah.
For you, it's probably, I think is it Rich? Oh, that's not right. I mistyped that one.
I do more because I'm a Moorfield student, so it's more.ecpi.net.
Okay. More.ecpi.net.
Yep. And so go into student resources.
And resources.
And then free Microsoft software.
Yeah, but you have to search for it, but it's there.
Yep. Okay. So you could do sign in. Yep. It takes your credentials. It's going to ask me to authenticate who I am. Yep. Love multi-factor authentication. All right. If you go under software, you can do access. You can just type access right there.
And we're getting the 2021 or
you can do, yep. You can do 2021. Okay.
Well, do you think the ECPI computers will already have it on there, like some of the ECPI computers, or
if you're on campus, they do. Yes.
Okay, no problem.
Is that the actual software, or is it like the web version?
No, it's the actual software. It gives you a product key and everything.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep. So we'll choose Painter, or we'll type in Painter and say OK. We're going to remove auto number. We're going to just choose number because we want to manually increment these. So we'll say Painter num Painter, need to be in all caps. L name, that's going to be short text. Painter's first name. Painter's area code, that's a number. And Painter's phone number. And so we'll save all of those. So we'll go to File and Save. We're now going to create a gallery table. So we'll go to Create, to Design View, Table Design. We're going to choose or type in gal num. It's a number. Gal owner, short text, gal area code. Gal phone, and gal rate, and that's a number. I went ahead and selected the number the first time, and I chose primary key. All right, and so we will save this one as gallery. And we'll create one more. We're going to call this one painting. So it's painting num, I think it's no actually. Nope, painting num. It's a number. Painting title. Painting price, currency. Painter number, that's a number. And gallery number, and that's a number. Last thing we'll do here is we'll choose painting number and make that the primary key. We can save that as painting. And so now we have all three. And I'll pause here. If you need me to go back to any one of those, I can.
I'm still installing the app.
Okay.
Yeah. I may ask you if you can to go back a bit.
Yeah. So what I'll do then is just so that everyone else will keep going. I'm going to keep going with what we're doing.
Okay.
And I can back up when you need me to.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So we're going to click on gallery. Oh, actually, I double clicked on it to open it. And we're going to fill out some of this information. The first one is going to be gallery number 23. The owner is going to be named Jordan. The area code is 23441, and the rate is 50, 45, 37, and 59. I'll go through and write all these as I go. Alice, Mix Master, and Jacob. 100, 250, and 50. Two and 786 4598. And I'll pause here because this will take a minute for you to catch up. All right, so the next one we'll do Painter. So I'll double click Painter. We'll just type these in. Last name, Smith, John, 456 5741. Johnson, Jones, Gallo, Amy, Matthew, and Sally. Okay. All right, and then for the last one is painting, and we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Prices are 150, 236, 89, 500, 346. That's 234, 234, 365. And all I'm doing is putting the gallery numbers that they're in. 7 and 45. And then go back and fill out the information. None of this is important in the order in which you do it, other than the primary key.
Professor,
Yep.
would it be possible if you can send a file that you're making right now?
Yep.
So I can just catch up and continue from
Yep.
where we are.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, so what I did, give me 1 second. Got one user trying to get in. All right, so for 3.2, what it wanted us to do is create the 3 tables and fill those 3 tables out with some data. We can now go to File and Save, Database Tools, Compact and Repair. That closes all of our tables out. And now we can save again if it already saved it for us. And we can take that and I can upload that to the guided practice. All right. So the next piece, which is guided practice 3.3. Actually, before that, I'm going to stop sharing, close this down, and upload it so everyone can see it. Because this is going to be what we'll use for the next section. So I'll copy that. and submit it there. And so we'll reopen that file. And then once we've opened the file, we're going to create those relationships, just like we did a little earlier when I was talking through Microsoft Access. We're going to go into Database Tools, to Relationships, we're going to select each one of these. I'm going to spread these out where it's easier to see. And then what we're going to do is take our gallery number and go down to Paintings. We'll choose Referential Integrity, Update and Delete Records. Choose Create. Notice it created that one gallery to many paintings, and then one painter. Drug that over, created the referential integrity, and did a create. And so now one painter can create many paintings, and those paintings can be hung in a gallery. Or a gallery can hang many paintings or can show many paintings by one or many painters. And so we will save this if you've gotten that created. So I'll go to File and Save. And if I go look at the gallery table, notice we have that plus sign now. And if I expand the first one, you'll see it has one entry. The second one, the third one, and the fourth
Professor,
one.
do you
Yep.
mind going to the relationships real quick?
Sure. There you go.
We're enforcing referential integrity as well, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. Once that's completed, you would go over to Database Tools, to Compact and Repair, which saves it, and then you can upload it. What we were doing in this guided practice is we took the guided practice from 3.2, which was creating the tables, adding records to those tables, and then in 3.3, we expanded on that by creating the relationships between the tables. Okay, so take that. I'll close it. I'll stop sharing. And then I will upload it again. So you'll have the latest version. Okay. And then I will open Microsoft Access one more time and share my screen. Okay, so the next one in Microsoft Access, it wants us to take an entity relationship diagram or an ER diagram of an employee's, an appointment, a project, and a department. And it wants us to break that out into a Microsoft database. All right, so I'm going to walk us through just how to do that. So I'll go to blank database. And we're going to call this one let's call it, go here. We're going to call it GP 3.4. And we're going to say create. All right, so the first thing is we're going to create a new design. We're going to call this one department code. I'm going to say that's an auto number and department name. We're going to choose department code and make that the primary key. And we're going to save it as department. So 2 fields, one is code, one is name, auto number, and short text. Say OK. For table 1, we'll go to design view. We're going to call this one project. And it's going to be project code and project name. We'll save that as well. And then we have 2 others. One is the employee and one is the appointment. So to create those, we'll go over to create. And we will say create design. And it's going to be employee ID, auto number, employee's last name, employee's first name. We're going to add the department code for the user. We'll make the employee ID, so we'll select that and choose primary. We'll call this employee. And so I hit save and typed in employee. And we'll say OK. I know I'm going fast. I'll come back to each one of them and show you the design in just a moment. We'll go back to create and table design again. This one is going to be project code, and that's a number. Employee ID, and that's a number. Assignment date, and that's a date. Then assignment hours. That's a number. I'm going to save this one as appointment and say OK. It's going to ask if I want to put a primary key. I'm going to say no. And the reason for that is we're going to create a composite key. Just like I mentioned earlier in our original example, we're going to select project code and the employee ID, make sure both of those are highlighted, and choose primary key. And that makes both of them primary keys. And now we can save that. And let's go through each one of them again. Going to compact and close. And so I will click on project and go to the design view. Just to make it easier, I'm going to take a screenshot of each one of these and paste it so you'll have it. For the employee,
Professor, I have a question.
okay.
When I compact and repair database, here, let me just show you.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh,
no, you're good. You're good. You're good. Go ahead. Because I'm just taking a screenshot of these.
okay. It lays it out horizontally.
Let's see.
By the way, Professor, you said the screenshots are what we got a screenshot when we do the guided practices, right?
Well, they are, but they're also if you need to catch up and you need to see what they look like. And I'm
Okay.
not on that screen.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Do a compact and repair again for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so that removes it. Yep.
Makes it all horizontally.
Right. So click on home.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you see the protractor and yep. Click on it for me and design. There you go.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. That's the difference in design view and datasheet view.
Okay.
All right. So now that we've gotten all 4 of those documented, so they are created, I'm going to close each one of them. And I'm going to go to database tools, to relationship, select all of them. So I'll double click each one of them. Make sure the department's out there, the employees, the appointments, and the project. And so now we just connect them together. Your department has employees. So one department can have many employees. One project can have many appointments, so many employees can be working on many projects. And then employee. So now we can say A department can have many employees. One employee can have one or many appointments to a project, but they can also, an employee can have many assignments on many projects, and a project can have many employees based on their appointments. And so I'll save that.
I just realized something. Professor, why did the appointment only create one project per for appointment? Like when we dragged department code to department code and employee, it went from one to infinite. Like one department can have many employees, each employee can have many appointments, but for the appointment and project, it went reverse.
Right. So a project can have many appointments, and those appointments are related to the number of employees.
Did it automatically choose it like that too?
It did. It automatically chose it based on how it works.
Gotcha. Yep. That's what I just realized. Just noticed that.
Yep, it does automatically choose that.
Cool.
All right. So does anyone have any questions on 3.2, 3.3, or 3.4? I'm going to upload this one too, so you'll have it. Okay, then I will compact this one. I will close it out. And I will upload it to Microsoft Teams. All right. All right, so I know it's only 7:30 Eastern time, but I want to recap what we've covered and give you a chance to catch up and ask questions or get to where you need or want to be. What we did tonight is we opened up Microsoft Access. I did a brief overview of the screen or the application and how it works. Over the next several weeks, we will go deeper into queries and forms and reports. But for today, we did create tables. We input data in those tables. We created relationships for each table. And we saw that each one of those tables was able to traverse those relationships. So we could dive deeper into each table and the records and as they were connected to each other. We did that for a custom database that we created, or the one I did originally, and then we also did it for guided practices 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4. All right. Does anyone have any questions on what we covered tonight?
I don't have any questions, but I do have an input.
Okay.
Microsoft Access is a lot better than Visio.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that.
So, actually, no, never mind. Yeah, I think I'm good, but I probably might have some questions in a bit, but I think I'm good now. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Good. So what I want to do is take a quick 15, 20-minute break. And if you are finished with your guided practices or you want to work on those on your own, more than welcome to do so. I'm going to be here until probably 8:30, 9 o'clock or so, maybe later if you have questions and you want to go later. But if not, and you're on campus and you want to drive home, you're more than welcome to do so. Just let me know in chat so I'll know not to look for you again. All right, so again, let's take 15 minutes if you're going to stick around. If not, then we'll see you on Thursday. The recording will be posted as well. And if you don't have any questions, then I hope this was enjoyable. I hope it was easier than the last 2 weeks.
It really was. I mean, for me at least, it was. This was a lot more entertaining and interactive.
Good.
And
I'm glad.
I think that after what we've done through Visio, I think we have like a better understanding of what we're doing with Access.
Good. I would recommend, if you have some time and you want to read through it, if you'd go to the weekly overview page for week 3 and click on the database basics reading. That's a pretty good read to go through. It talks about what a database is, the parts of the database, kind of what I covered in terms of tables. It also goes in depth into forms, reports, and queries. So it'll give you a little insight as to what we're going to be covering over the next several weeks. All right, so let's do 15 minutes or so. If you want to head out, you're more than welcome to. If you want to stick around, then I'll be back in about 15 minutes. And I am going to stop the recording.